Welcome to the Achieve Success Podcast. I'm your host, Nathaniel F. Holmes. Each week I feature ordinary people who have accomplished great things. Tune in to get inspired and receive tips that'll help you reach your goals in business and life as you strive to become the best version of yourself and achieve success.
You know, I don't think of myself as unsuccessful, right? But I definitely wouldn't, when people think of like, talk to me about success, and I do a lot of podcast interviews, actually. I do this often.
Wow.
But I don't ever consider myself successful. And when I'm in the den with other lions or in the big cat arena,
Right.
None of them do either. They're just people who are competing with themselves, their future selves,
Right.
or their future selves. And that's what I try to think of myself. I'm a wild thing, right? Where the wild things are. And when I'm with other wild things, we're not competing against one another, but we're just trying to be the best wild thing we know how to be.
Right. Yeah.
We're just trying to be the best one we know how to be. And you've really inspired me. And actually, I'm going to have to go ahead and steal this now that you've given me the right platform to do it on. Definitely not for the same audience, but last year I attended, and this is a sidebar conversation that you and I can have. We can do it together.
Right.
But this has been on my heart to be able to do it, and I just didn't have time to put it all together. But I love your format. Like, this is totally duplicatable.
Right.
And I love it. And the fact that it's on Zoom, and who thought of using Zoom before, unless you had to.
Right.
COVID,
I know, right? That's
I would have met people for coffee. And I love video. I do love video because I think that it's a better exchange, but this works too. Why not do it? Yeah. But I went to I listened to NPR. I support NPR. And I went to a live, they have a program, I don't know if he would call it a podcast, but some of them are podcasts. But his is Charlotte Talks with Mike. Do you listen to NPR?
I do from time to time listen to NPR.
And I guess his program is podcasted, right? But it's Charlotte Talks, and he's like one of the major morning shows. It comes on at 9 o'clock Monday through Friday, and it also comes on at like 7 or 8 o'clock p.m. as well. It's called Charlotte Talks, and he deals with all the major issues in Mecklenburg County and Charlotte, city of Charlotte, and this particular region of North Carolina, all things Charlotte. And that's usually during a morning commute that people can catch it. Last year, we had so much violence in Charlotte, and spiking numbers of deaths, homicides, particularly with the youth. And they did a live Charlotte Talks with several African-American gentlemen just talking about what they do with their nonprofit organizations and why they feel that this particular generation is repeating cycles of previous, generations in Charlotte with the death toll so high, and what's driving that, and what can we do, we as citizens in this community, do to bring awareness and to bring those numbers back down. And I have 2 sons,
right,
and that's near and dear to my heart. But we could all do more, something, anything. What are your recommendations or suggestions? Like, I don't know. What do I do? What could I do? What could I do? So that's why I went. And when I went, I met a young man I'll never forget. He was so smart, but he, like many of us, he just wanted to leave home and never look back. Like he was still in high school, but he said this, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks in the head. We think we're so smart.
Right.
But he was like, I have aspirations to do great things and to be a great person one day. He said, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even know how to vote. I want to vote in the next election, but nobody's ever showed me how or what to do. And he was like, He said some very basic common sense things. He's like, I want to be smart and financially smart. He said, but nobody's ever come and showed me how to do those things.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, I can't write a $10 million check to solve anything right now, right? But there should be a young person in my city saying these basic things, and I'm not lending my time and my expertise. I can teach somebody how to do that, like that. I do those things with my eyes closed.
Right.
So I said, there needs to be more communication between what we do professionally, but demystifying, as you're looking to do right now, that my life isn't magic, right? It looks good, right? This isn't magic.
Right.
I get up, I do the same things every single day, right? It's a system that I follow. And the inputs create the outcome. And young people need to learn that. It's a process, like you said. And I wanted to interview, as a matter of fact, I got everybody listed down who I want to talk to. I just wanted to do more like a, kind of like a vlog where it was a coffee talk. But I like this. I'm going to have to take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I borrow it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's the format is just, it's really laid back. It's very simple. It's not very technical. So really anyone can do it. And if it really for this COVID-19 situation, I honestly don't know that it would have dawned on me. I mean, my 8-year-old daughter, about a month ago, was so excited about, she had her first Zoom class, and didn't even click then. It was probably about 2 or 3 weeks after she had been doing this that I was like, you know what? Zoom records, I can do interviews and then use the audio from the interview to do to send it to podcast platforms. The video can be uploaded to a YouTube channel, because people learn in different ways, right? So someone may like videos, someone may not care for it. They may prefer audio. So I can do that. And then some people like to read. So then I can just transcribe this and turn it into a blog, So that was kind of the whole thought process, because I'm not very technical, so to speak, but I like to use technology to solve challenges, and this makes perfect. But when you were talking about that young man,
this is smart.
When you were talking about that young man who said, I want to vote and I don't know how, and I want to understand money and how it works, that the feeling that you had about it hitting you like a ton of bricks and feeling like, hey, this is something that I want to help, is the exact reason why I'm doing this. Is because living in Durham, Durham, not necessarily like Charlotte, but very similar to Charlotte, there's a lot of crime in Durham, or at least it's publicized that there's a lot.
I know you don't know this, but I actually lived there for 9 years.
Right.
I lived there until I was 12.
Okay. And then you guys went to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I know all about Durham.
Right. So part of my passion is for young Black men, and the fact that I feel like we are not given all of the options that are possibly available to us. I feel that a lot of times it's, hey, go to school, go to school, go to school. Well, really, there are other options besides just going to high school, then going to college, then getting a degree, then getting a postgraduate degree, right? So that's where my passion comes from, is because I went to college. I went to high school, graduated, and then went on to go to college. I didn't finish per se because I didn't get a degree, but I was there for 4 years. The reason I didn't get a degree is because I really and truly was not interested in going to school. I was only going to school because it was the next thing to do, right? And because of that, I wasted some time and then started working. I found joy and happiness in working. I found success in working and accomplishing goals while working. But then ultimately, entrepreneurship is really what opened everything up for me, because I started getting exposed to certain ideas and thoughts and authors through books and through read, and not because I like to read, because I don't like to read. I'm a slow reader, but
It's fundamental.
through listening to books. So rather than me saying, oh, I'm not going to pick up a book because I'm a slow reader and I won't finish it, which I've never finished a book, but I have over 200 titles in my Audible library, and I've listened to all of them, right? So I just found another way to do it. But that is part of what I want to communicate, is finding another way to do it, finding another way to be successful in life, finding another way to provide for your family. Everyone doesn't have to go the route of go to college, go to high school, then go to college, and then get be a skilled professional, right? There are other avenues in which we can earn. There are other avenues in which we can become wealthy. And that's what I want to expose people to. And I feel that if and when people are exposed to that, they'll have other options than being out on the street corner, right? Because the same skills and talents that you use to be out on the street corner, you can use those same skills and talents as an entrepreneur, and you can do well. You don't have to worry about, is your life in danger or the life of your loved ones in danger? It just blows my mind why those things are not being talked about, being considered, and being offered, as an option. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this, because I feel like there were some guys that I know that if they knew that they could start a business and no one would ask them if they had a degree, no one would ask what college you go to. You just go fill out a form and turn it into the Secretary of State. Nowhere on there does it ask you when you're forming your LLC, what high school or college did you go to? They don't care. It doesn't matter. But what you're doing is then you're forming a business entity, you're becoming legitimate, and then you provide a product or a service to people. The same product or services that they choose to provide that people are choosing to use, they're subsequently destroying their lives and their family lives, they can find other products and services to provide. You understand what I'm saying?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Of course I do. That's the whole thing about self-discovery, right? And that's what they don't teach us in school. But here's the thing, Nathaniel. I would love to say we should all do a better job of it, but there's a saying, a proverb that goes like this: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, not the other way around. Okay. I love to say all the time, we say hindsight's 2020. We say, I wish somebody would have told me, right?
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is this: if someone were to give you that information, they'd be casting pearls before swine. If you're not ready to absorb it, if you're not ready to process it, then it doesn't matter how any of that access to knowledge comes about, right? There's a church girl in me that wakes up every morning, so I always have to start from that point of reference, and almost everything I process, right, it comes from underneath a church pew, and then somewhere we end up around the first corner and past a bar, and no, I'm kidding, but but I wake up a church girl every morning, and I might not end up one, but I wake up a church girl every morning. So the Bible says how a man can't come unless the Spirit of God draws him, right? Exactly. So nobody wakes up and says, I want to be saved. Oh, good God, I want to be saved. I just think I should be saved today. No, it's like it says if a man seek God, he will find him, right? But that first has to come from you. You first have to want to change. You first have to want more for your life. Yeah. You first have to become curious. Yeah. You first have to choose yourself.
Right. Now, would you say that might be a little bit of a situation of what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because how would one even have those desires if they were not even exposed to it in the first place? Right? If how would I thirst after the knowledge if I'm not even somewhat exposed to it to say, oh, that looks interesting. Let me go find out more about it. So
no.
no,
I think that I think that you're always going to have dreamers, right? Right. That's like saying nobody ever taught me to be a whatever. Like nobody ever, you don't, no wild animal has to learn how to mother its offspring. It's innate. It is what the thing does. It just knows. I don't know. It's called motherhood. It just knows what to do.
right.
And some things we do have to learn. But what I'm saying here is it's about the journey, right? And some of us don't even know that we have choices, right?
Indeed.
And we definitely don't know what options and the choices we have. But the discovery comes, let's talk about it like this. Let's talk about drugs and being an addict,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't need, all you need is curiosity and a bad crowd. And boom, you got your entrance, right? Into drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And then all you need is that longing in your heart for you to want to be a better person, right? You might not know how, you might not know who's paying for rehab or what is, what all it's going to take, but it just has to start inside of you. And I'm saying that has to come inside of you. I believe that's innate. You're not going to make me believe that that's not innate. But we are all not we might all be created equally in love, but God did not deposit the same gifts in all of us. Mm. And all of us have not discovered our equality within ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
So all of us don't know that we've got the same time of the day that Oprah has.
That's right. Yeah.
All of us don't know that we've got the same ability to be as informed as any reporter, okay? If we research.
Yeah.
But we can get better at discovery, but that's got to come from within us. And I do believe that it comes from within, because the truth of the matter is much like you said yourself, Nathaniel, when you were in college, the reason why you didn't succeed is because you just didn't want to. You weren't feeling it, right? And it didn't matter what anybody told you at the time, right?
Nope.
You either felt it was a priority for yourself or not. But that had to come from within. And it wasn't because you didn't know it was the thing to do. We all know it's what we're supposed to do, right? People aren't, whatever. But at some point in time, you either want to or you don't. You're either curious or you're not. You're either taking the next step or you're not.
Yeah.
And when we take accountability for that, and we do have to start taking it, particularly in our community, we have to start taking accountability, right? Not blame, not wagging fingers, but like I said, I wanted to know what I could do. What can I do to contribute? Anything. Just give me an idea. I want to do something.
Right.
And my takeaway from going to that, of stopping that violence, much like yourself, was, okay, I think that if we gave young people something else to focus on, I can make people curious. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Right.
But I know how to run horses. I can do that. I can run horses. Right.
But I do that. So how did you come about your career choice?
That's a great question. My career, I didn't choose it. It chose me. And we'll talk about how I created, how I discovered what my calling in this career choice was. Mm-hmm. And why I've stayed with it for 20 years. I just needed a job when I was in college. Right. And I always had a great telephone voice. And I've done several jobs, several other odd jobs here and there, high tides, low tides, a ton of different ways to make money. I've always believed in multiple streams of income. But the only thing I've ever done professionally was in the mortgage industry, because I was a great admin assistant, a secretary, they used to call it back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I kept getting assigned through temporary agencies, which was really big in the 90s, to mortgage companies. And that idea in and of itself was new, because prior to the 90s, if you needed a loan for a home, you went to a bank or a credit union, right? A lending institution, right, which was likely a depository bank or a credit union, depository institution.
Right.
And in the mid 90s, all of a sudden you actually had mortgage banks starting to emerge that didn't do anything but lend money. They did not take checking accounts or savings accounts, no deposits. And so there was a demand for loan professionals. And after enough temporary assignments, I got my first full-time job at First Union Home Equity Bank. I was an administrative assistant, post-close loan review processor, an underwriter, and then I went into sales. And this spring has been 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you get to, and for our listeners and followers, the reason you're on is because I feel you have achieved a level of success. You may say, oh, no, I haven't. I'm nobody, but you're doing your thing. 20 years in your career. And I'm pretty sure in your, amongst your peers, that you probably ranked somewhere along around the top in terms of a producer. So I'm just going to assume that, because
we'll let you go with your assumptions. We'll let you go with your assumptions.
But how did you get to this level of success? How did you get to the place from being an admin assistant, right, to where you are now, 20 years later, sustaining a career in sales?
I ask great questions. I ask great questions of myself. Where do I want to be? Why do I want to be that? What is that I want to be? And why do I really want to be that? Who's doing that? How did you go from, where did you start? Mm-hmm. How did you get to where you are now? What do you love about what you do? Where do you see yourself going? Right? So the older you get, the wiser you get, the better questions you ask. Every day, my job is to ask questions. That's all I do as a loan officer, is ask people enough questions so I can get them qualified, right? I have to go and ask you as a borrower all your questions. Then I have to go tell your story and package it up and document it and sell your story to somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. Sell myself back to you and my company back to you. And then we all meet in the middle at the closing table, right?
Right.
So when you ask better questions, you get really good answers.
Yeah.
And I have to ask those questions of myself sometimes. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is there a better solution for this person? Is there an easier way to do this? What is the exact outcome that I desire before I start this? When do I know I have succeeded, or it is complete, or I've had enough?
Right.
Right? Begin with the end in mind. Stephen Covey says that, right?
Exactly.
So I think you have to ask really good questions and develop great relationships.
Yeah. Those are definitely keys to success in my current profession as an automotive sales professional. It's so funny because you can see the folks that are just starting and the ones who have been there, and you can tell the difference by the questions that they ask. The seasoned veterans know the right questions to ask to get to the solution to help that guest. The young ones, they have no idea. And some of them get frustrated because they don't seek and go and ask someone hey, how do I get better, or what kind of questions do I need to be asking? And the ones that do end up making it are the ones that ask those questions, like you said, of yourself. You ask the questions of yourself, and then you go find those answers. So I would absolutely agree with that asking great questions is definitely a key to getting or achieving any level of success. Now, earlier you mentioned that you have a system. I call it a daily success routine. So what does your daily success routine look like?
I took some notes, so I'm going to cheat them with the little notes that I had taken. I apologize. Give me a minute.
No, you're fine.
So here's the system. I'm just going to read this because when I wrote it, it was my gut reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 3 things. It's focus, determination, and tenacity. The wiser I become, the more I can focus on small increments of time. And it took me, this all sounds really good and silky smooth, right? I make it look easy. I make it sound easy. But it took me a long time to grow in this wisdom, right? I spent a lot of years circling with little profit, truth be told. And not having anything to really show for all of the effort that I was putting. And so I had to learn how to focus on smaller increments of time. You're going to laugh because this is repetitive, but I asked myself a lot of questions, even during the day. How do I feel in this moment? I believe now I have learned meditation, even prayer, right? You should pray an hour every day. Lord Jesus, help us. It was always difficult for me because after about 5 minutes in, I was just like, and I think a lot of Christians feel that way. I think a lot of people who are all namaste and meditating and doing all the things that they're doing to try to get quiet, try to quiet your mind, try to get laser focused. It's hard to do because you're left with your thoughts that are very loud, very racing, very repetitive. But mindfulness is very key. And your clarity, I don't care what you believe, everybody's after the same thing, is peace of mind.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's feeling confident, it's feeling connected, it's feeling assured, and that can only come when you are centered and when you have peace of mind. But you got to get quiet to do that. So I have to ask myself a lot of questions and process a lot of things. So how do I feel in this moment? What must I accomplish today? What would I like to accomplish today in this hour? What do I need to do in this hour, in this afternoon, today total, right? And then and in this week and in this month, and then I prioritize from there. Gotcha. And then I write down everything that is a priority and everything that's important to me. Even if it's a fleeting thought, I also give myself segments of time for my mind to wander. Right? You'll appreciate this, Nathaniel, having grown up. I didn't read this to you. I'm going to take the time to read this to you now because I wrote it with such clarity, right? My childhood. Let's talk about my childhood. Since you introduced my childhood for me, I'm going to read this. I attended a super conservative sect of a holiness church.
Right. Right.
So, and I put that my life was filled with rules and regulations and restrictions. And so you can appreciate this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
When a child, to the point of what you were just saying, grows up in a box, a tiny little box, and God is a tiny little person in your tiny little box, right? That you call on, you grow up feeling that you can't. And whether it's a religious box or if it's a poverty box, we usually all start off with some type of box. Right. And it's pretty small, right? And through your self-discovery process as a young adult and in life, when you finally realize that the room is bigger than your tiny box and that the world is bigger than the original box that you were presented with, right? So you go through the self-discovery process. Now you've got to prove that everything you thought was your reality. Are you still holding on to that? Are you going to build on that? Or do you have to chuck all of that and start over in this big, wide world, right? Exactly. And when you grow up hearing the words as in this culture, in our culture, in our society, no, like 10 million times before the age of 2, you just think that everything is going to be
right
before you even start. And that's why people stop dreaming, stop becoming curious, stop. It's programmed. We're programmed that way,
yes
right?
absolutely
But it is our natural nature to be curious, right?
yes.
And since I did think I mentioned, if I didn't, I'll go on record. I'm extraordinary. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Yes, I'm extraordinary, extraordinary, right? And I have to give my mind time to wonder. I like to make lists. I will stop and have a whole daydreaming list, like 15 seconds of just 18 places I wish I'd rather be right now.
Right.
Whatever it takes, right? But I allow the diversion, and then I got to come back
Yeah.
and move on to what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you have to allow yourself grace, and these are things that I practice. I write it down. I write my deviations of thoughts down. I write down my priorities, and then you got to check it off, and you keep working until you check off the most important things, period.
Right.
And those are non-negotiables in your life. So that's my system for success. Focus, determination, tenacity. And the way I say focus is allowing for flexibility and wandering thoughts, right? But then you got to bring it back in.
Yeah. You know, in Tim Ferriss's book, the 4-Hour Work Week or something, that book that he has, I think it was in there that the idea really sunk in about giving yourselves, or maybe it was even Brendan Bouchard, but giving yourself really only about 50 to 55 minutes of hard concentration at a time, right? Like you go hard for about an hour, and then you need to take a break. Because if you don't, you know, a good friend of mine, Kwame, from Trinidad, said, you know, you're going to have diminishing returns, right? You know, it at that point, right? You work so hard, and then after a while, you're working hard, but you're not really accomplishing anything. So you want to keep those pockets of laser focus to about an hour. So you go hard for about an hour, and it's funny because in my day, I go through that. So I'll have a day where I have like 30 calls I have to make. And it's the worst thing ever for me to sit there and make those calls. And I have phone reluctance. And it's almost like every call I've got to like talk myself into making a call. Like, just pick up the call, just pick up the phone, just make the call, pick up the phone, just make the call. But after about an hour, I'm done. I've got to get up. I've got to go do something. You know, maybe I'll walk around the showroom, go use the restroom. But after about an hour, I'm done. So your point of having that focus is absolutely key, because you have to be able to focus. But we need to also understand that that doesn't mean you have to sit there and go 8 hours hard on something. You've got to be able to break up that time, so that you really truly can focus, because if you don't, then you're not really gonna have the type of focus that you need. So the daydreaming list is great. I think I'm gonna borrow that and use that, so that, you know, in my break time, that I'm still being somewhat productive, right? You know, write down those things, because like this podcast was one of those brainstorming like ideas that just popped up. And I just decided to take action. And what I did, instead of writing it down, I literally started sending out the invites right away, because
it's important. Immediate action, massive, yes. Immediate action.
Yes. I learned that if you don't take action, it's not going to happen. And that was what happened with my initial book idea. It was actually someone that I don't personally know on Facebook that 2 years ago, we had talked about the idea for me writing this book, the book that I just released last Friday, to help.
Congratulations.
People. Thank you. So you know how people used to say, Google me? Well, now you can Amazon me. Right? But
yes,
it was literally about 2 years to the month, actually. It was 2 years to the month that we randomly connected again. And when we went to the inbox, we could see, and that's the great thing about, some of this technology, we could see, he said, Nate, it's been 2 years since you talked about this. Why haven't you done it yet?
Yeah.
He's like, come on, man, you got to do it. So
guilty. I'm
right?
guilty right now. I've already completed my manuscript and I've been editing for like 6 months.
It's unbelievable. He said, look, man, let's do this thing. He said, this is what you need to do. Go ahead and hire someone to write this part. Go ahead and hire an editor. Start taking these action steps. And he worked with me to push me along the way. Had he not done that, I wouldn't have gotten that book done, because I would have just sat again on the idea. So this time when I had the idea, I kept thinking about how he kicked me in the butt. I said, no, I'm not going to sit on it. I'm going to go ahead and take action. So instead of waiting till I write the book, I'm doing a podcast instead. So then once the book releases, then the title of the book is going to be the same, the Achieve Success. Then already I will have followers and people
Content
watching.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then boom, it'll be ready. But it's absolutely important that, we take action. So writing down those things and then taking action upon them afterwards. Excellent idea in terms of things that you need to do in order to make sure you're reaching your goals. Now, if you could go back in time, now I know you're a spring chicken. If you could go back in time and give some advice to your younger self, what advice would you give?
I'm going to read this one too, because this is a great answer. I would tell a younger Bliss that anything that I worked diligently for would actually be possible, and that I needed to believe that it was possible for me, because I'm destined to have my future and I was worth my future dreams. And I would also have told myself that my only failure would be not to try.
Not trying. That's
because your success is in learning how to move forward, to follow my bliss, my internal bliss, and enjoy the journey. Life is about the journey. And when you use the word journey, and when you focus on the word journey, I want to back up really quick to the previous thing, because there's something important as it relates to this journey word that I left out about ensuring your success. You'll self-sabotage focused on outcomes. So you have to stay focused on inputs. Garbage in, garbage out. But if you put quality focused time in, the right formula in, the non-negotiables for your business, the fundamentals of your business, like you said, pick up the phone, make 30 calls. Like, if it's made money for anybody, it'll make money for me. I got to pick up the phone. And you'll write 30 emails. You'll write 30 handwritten notes. You'll set 30 social media appointments or whatever, but you will not pick up the phone and make 30 calls. And it's the phone calls that are going to make the money producing activity. So we have to do those things. I'm guilty. You're guilty. We're all guilty of it. It's a 500-pound phone. It weighs so much, my God. But we have to focus. We have to find the balance in it. And so I want to say this, creating this balance in my life is my success. It's not about whether or not I actually fund the loan and close the deal, right? But did I contact the people? Did I do what I said I was going to do?
Right.
Did I even try what I said I was going to do if I changed the formula? So focus on the inputs, not the outcome. And because the outcome is like a destination, is by the time that you've done the thing, you end up arriving somewhere. But if you stay focused on where you're going solely, you can lose track of the journey. And the journey is so very important. You must stay present on the journey. You must pay attention to your surroundings, to what's going on with you throughout your journey. I don't care where you are in life. You have to stay focused and being present. And if I were going to go and talk to a younger self, I would say, well, don't worry so much, right? What you need to have faith is that you will arrive. you will be exactly where you're supposed to be, whether or not it's exactly where you intended on being or not. It'll always work out. I promise.
Yes.
God is my witness. It will always work out, no matter how many times you get flipped upside down, buried, set on fire, and blended all at the same time and drowned. It will always work out, probably better than you could have imagined. You'll get another life, you'll get another token, whatever it is you believe in.
Yeah.
But it'll work out. We spend so much time worrying on the destination, on the outcome, that we lose sight of the journey. And we're meant to live our life with joy. But you can't do that if you're always focused on an intended outcome. You got to be focused on what you're putting into this day, the joy you're bringing to this day,
Right.
the prudence that you're giving to manifesting your future today. So the journey, stay focused on the journey.
Absolutely. That journey piece of it, like you said, that's really where the joy and the pleasure comes from, is in that journey. Because like you said, you get to the end, okay, you're here now. Now what?
That's just a plateau. It's just always just a plateau.
Yep. Now what? But if you're not enjoying it along the way, then you really won't be happy. So I absolutely. We talked a little bit earlier, about books. There's a couple books that I've read or listened to that I feel have been very helpful to me in opening my thoughts, opening my mind to the possibilities that exist. Is there a book, or are there books that you would say have been influential to you in your success?
Absolutely. I'm going to read these to you. I'll first start off by saying that, the biggest thing I feel like anybody could do for themselves is to fully engage self-discovery. Some people are avoiding it because they're afraid of what's inside of their inner child, or what's inside of their curious self, or what's inside of their inner mind. They squelch it because every time they engaged in creativity or self-ingenuity, they were met with pessimism or a restriction or regulation or technicality, right? And so some people just let that part of them die, and they completely operate out of obligation and the expectations of others. Some people are completely living a life out of expectations of others. Right. They are this and they are that because it made so-and-so proud, or it's what such and such expected, and it affords them the type of lifestyle that they want to live. And this goes to me saying something else that I'll say later I'll say it now. I'll go ahead and say it now. And I wrote it down, and I want to say it exactly how I said it. It was about success. Let's talk about success really quick, and then I'll come back to the books real quick. Okay?
That's fine.
So I put the success is always a number. It's always a number. Okay? 20 years ago for me in the mortgage industry, and by the way, my name is Bliss Green. I'm a mortgage lender, #LendingBliss, lendingbliss.com. I help people gain home ownership. I help people better afford home ownership. I help people build massive wealth through real estate investing, right? So I make loans to people who are acquiring real estate. That is what I do. And I have taken what I have learned to do in my life to become a calling to be able to help people, right? Through those steps that I just told you. And Nathaniel, you're so sweet to sing my praises. I probably have made that look easy. It has definitely not been easy. This is not an easy thing to do. Managing personalities, delivering results at a high demand is not an easy thing to do, but I am so privileged and so grateful that so many people have entrusted their very lives, literally, to me, and have allowed me to guide them through that process across the nation. And so I count myself very fortunate. And if you would love my assistance, I'd love to help you. You can reach me online, #LendingBliss, and you can find me at my website at lendingbliss.com. But success, 20 years ago for me, it was a survival paycheck. right? So that was my number, getting paid, right? Just keeping the food on the table. I call that the value thing. Necessity and money for me and my others in my life, right? And then success became a cycle of closed loans and dollar volume. So it was sustaining this valued thing, or the value of my thing, right? And that's where the tenacity came in. Can I hang in there? Can I make it through tough times? Can I make it through down markets? I saw a couple of them in the last 20 years, right? We're getting ready to go through another one in the next couple of months. Then it became a thing of balancing, what do I really want out of life, and this thing, right, of making mortgages. I want to work smarter and not harder. I love my kids. I have 2 sons, and I wanted to be a better mommy and still provide to them the future that I want for them, right? And so how do I work smarter and not harder and thrive with this thing of mortgage lending, right? So how do I level up? Then success became, well, what am I doing it for? What am I doing all of this for? I'm working myself to death. I work ungodly hours. I'm giving my all to everybody. I'm doing all I know how to do. But when I die, what is anybody going to have to say about me? Like, what will people really say about me? What's my legacy? And whose lives am I actually impacting? And do people feel like I'm actually impacting their lives? So it was about the abundance of my mortgage business, this thing of value, and how do I allow this overflow to benefit other people? But now, success for me, success is another number, but it's only one. And it's me, number one. Success is about my happiness. I see that now more than anything ever. More than anything ever. God has blessed me. God has been so good. He has been better than good to me. And I am so grateful for all that I have been blessed with, all those lives, the lives of others that he has blessed me with, that he has allowed to be a blessing to through me. But at the end of the day, I have to be happy with me. And do I wake up with joy? Do I sleep peacefully and sweet? Is my health good in the middle of the thing? Because you never get away from the number, right? Survival and the thing and thriving and all of that, your thing, represented by some number. But now success is my peace of mind and my happiness. And so, I want to say this as it transitions back to the book and self-discovery. That success continuum for me was a self-discovery process of 20 years, man. I'm bringing to you my blood, sweat, and tears of 20 years. So I'll say this. I wrote this down. Be extraordinary, right? Everybody wants to be extraordinary. But being extraordinarily unhappy is a tragedy. So you can accomplish great things. But if you're miserable, what did you do it for? What does it matter? So you asked me about the books that had to help me balance this self-discovery process. Like, we're all in our own headspace, right?
Yeah.
In that tiny little box that we were given as a child with whatever your circumstances were. And I would say anything that leads you on that self-discovery process. For me, it was books on personality, because I'm in sales. I don't know if you know this, but I'm in sales, right? We're always selling and telling, right? So I have to sell people on me, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm sure you could name 5 mortgage lenders off the top of your head right now, and 10 realtors. So I have to differentiate myself in the sales. So it behooves me to learn how to manage personalities and or accept and embrace personalities, particularly ones that don't think like me, right? Right? So you might be a different type of emoji. And I love reading books about personalities and anything self-discovery and personal development. The Enneagram by Riso Hudson, because it helped me to understand how others think, feel, and why they do it, right? So it defines you by a number system. And it's really fun. I suggest that your viewers read it if you haven't already read it. Because it's ancient. I'm also into numerology. So I love astronomy and the correlation between numbers and stars and personalities. Like, that's my jam. Okay, I'm Okay, You're Okay by Thomas Anthony Harris. That book was recommended to me by my father, who I have a very special relationship with. And I love him dearly. And he used to always tell me as a young lady, you need to read X, Y, and Z. So this is one of his books, but as it turns out, it actually is an amazing psychology book and a great read, because everybody is not okay. Right. Everybody is not okay. And guess what? That's okay. It really is okay. And we all have to learn that, right? To give ourselves grace and to give other people space and grace.
Right.
And the third book is The Four Agreements. Have you read that, my friend? Yes. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing book by Don Miguel Ruiz. That's like, I had considered myself an accomplished reader long before I had read that book, but that book just really just turned everything on a dime and made me re-question, what am I doing? Right. And what do I really believe? And it gave me a path for me to be a wild thing and be okay with that, right? Yeah. For me to be me and who I was created to be in my own space, unapologetically. And I was appreciative for that experience. And then all-time gospel truth right next to the Bible. Here we go. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, right? Yep. Can I get an amen?
Amen. Amen.
Right? And the reason why I reread this book all the time is because your ability to create relationships and influence in relationships, right, these are your most powerful gifts, yes, right? And the way that this book so graciously and eloquently teaches you how to get what you want in terms of giving other people what they want is paramount. Yeah. Drop the microphone on that. Yeah. Yeah. And presently, as you suggested, I am a slow reader because I am easily distracted. I'm reading a book called Indistractable. And it's by Nir Eyal. But I've had to slow down reading it and not just skim over, because you know how we read. We read and it washes over us. But some things you just have to, it really makes you think you really have to slow down and process it. And this book has me processing right now because it's forcing me to rethink why I avoid things. And then why I'm drawn to certain things. Right. So I'm weighing out a lot, and it's also helping me better manage my time and allowing me to run off and play with the butterflies, but then come back and do what I have to do and be very focused and get productivity out of that. So I really appreciate that. That's Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and it's fairly new to the market. And then, of course, a greatest all times, any author that tells something mesmerizing and in an impactful way. And two of my favorite are probably Wayne Dyer and Maya Angelou. So I don't know that it even matters what you're reading sometimes, even for all of you sci-fi, May the 4th be with you, right? I'm a May baby, so May the 4th, whatever you're into, mystery, love. But I think as humans, the one thing that makes us relatable is the stories that we tell. And the more stories you read, the more you're able to share yours with other people. And it gives you that connectivity. That's power. So reading is power.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. A couple of those books, a couple of those titles that you suggested are in my Audible collection. That Dale Carnegie book, that's actually one that I actually have as like a paperback. Like an actual book. And then I got it again. I added it to my Audible because like you said, it's one of those timeless things that you can go back to again and again and again. And it absolutely has helped me in my profession, understanding, like you said, how to interact with folks and how to come to an agreement. And it's probably the book that has influenced the way that I interact with people the most. Because you know, if you treat everyone well with respect, then a lot of times you're going to get what you need. And if you take care of them first, absolutely, you're going to get what you need. So I would definitely, those are great titles. So, your biggest challenge, what would you say has been your biggest challenge to getting to where you are now? Obviously, the reason I asked the question is because, you know, like you said, we don't want folks to think that it's all easy, that it's all so simple. I want people to know and hear, understand that absolutely you're going to have challenges in your journey and on your journey. You're going to have those challenges. But guess what? You can overcome them. Right?
Absolutely.
You know,
my challenge has probably just been in my own headspace, believing in myself, right? And people don't like to start there because there's the moment of reality, because it sounds stupid. Of course I believe in myself. Of course I do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I say I have to have this conversation with myself. First, like, what are you talking about, Bliss? Of course you do. You're amazing. Right? We have that conversation, but the truth of the matter is that we all want more in life or other things. And if we really believe we should have those things,
right,
we would already have them. And that hurts, right? But it's true. So why don't we have the things that we desire, right? We have not because we ask not. And it's because you didn't believe it was possible.
Right.
So believing in myself, not that things are possible, but that the outcome that I desire is possible for me and is destined for me and is the only really outcome that should have ever been thought of in the first place.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard to exist, to get out of your own head space, right? Because we're so worried about the outcome that we're not just confident that it's going to take care of itself, because we're going to keep doing the right things today, the journey. I'm going to keep doing the right things.
Yeah.
So doubt, self-worth, self-sabotage have been my worst hurdles towards manifesting my uninhibited self. And I overcome those things by affirming who I am, visualizing my future self, constantly reprogramming, like constantly.
Yeah.
Meditation, prayer, right? My mom still speaks in tongues over me. It's not a problem. Occasionally I can get back there myself, you know. If it's really paramount, I can get back there. Thank God. Grounding and a lot of energy shifting. So my whole spirituality has evolved. It's become linear to multidimensional and like every shade of the rainbow and all encompassing. And so my world, my box is open all the way up, right? And I'm grateful for all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you feel has been your greatest accomplishment?
Oh, let's start with my children, because truth be told, when I had a mother, I actually felt like I got something done, right? I just had a baby. So I love my kids, and I love how they challenge me, because they make me want to be more and be better for them. Even if not for myself, they make me want to be better. Another one of my greatest accomplishments along the way, bringing women together is an extraordinarily powerful thing. And for the last 10 years, I've had the pleasure of organizing a women's group in Charlotte, North Carolina, called Charlotte Dynamic Women. And the diversity and liberation and connectivity that group and synergy that group has provided me, referrals and networking as well, has been extraordinary. And I'm very eternally grateful for that group, that experience, and all that it was and is, and hopefully to come. Learning that it's okay not to be okay. Like, I did not know that was possible. And if we disconnect, I'll charge up and connect back to you. But so I think I'm running low on life here. But learning that it's okay not to be okay, and that fitting in is not the same as standing out.
Hmm.
And that personally freed me to be me.
Yeah.
Because we spend our whole lives trying to fit in and be what other people say we should be.
Right.
And God made us all, he broke the mold after he created each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you figure out who you're supposed to be and what you need and what you're supposed to give to others is the day you figure out what you were created for and you're living your purpose.
Yeah.
And that idea freed me to be unapologetic about who I was here to help, and how I can provide healing to many. And traveling is pretty cool too.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing too much of that right now.
Not right now, but I look forward to seeing the rest of the broken world.
Yeah, indeed. So we the previous question asked about what your greatest challenge was. The next question asks, what would you say is your greatest disappointment? And to me, they're not the same, right?
No, they're not.
Because a challenge does not have to be something that is, I guess you could say, sad. But when you're talking about a disappointment, a lot of times that's something that's kind of sad. And the same reason for asking the question is that it's not all roses, you know, just like the previous question, it's not always going to be easy. You're going to have challenges, but it's not always going to be all roses and all pleasant. You're going to have disappointment along your journey, you know.
Yes.
So what would you say has been your greatest disappointment?
Expecting and relying on others to make me happy, to prioritize me, to validate me, to include me, to satisfy my desires. I don't care who it is in your life. You cannot assign any of those things to other people. It's a setup for depression and defeat. One of my ladies in my group said, you must never compare and despair, right? But don't rely on other people for your power. And your power comes in your ability to make yourself happy. Know what you need. Know your worth.
Right.
To create and operate in your own space and to pleasure yourself. And I don't mean in some ridiculous, quirky kind of way, but to know your joy, to know what makes you happy and to do it.
Right.
And it's okay to allow others to do these things for you, to be these things. I just celebrated a birthday this past Sunday, right? And I was overwhelmed with the well wishes and the calls and gifts and just the people that make my world go round. But the difference is that I don't expect it, even from people that I'm like, like even my partner, and the people in my life. I don't expect him to do whatever. It's like, you're here because you want to be, what I like, and you want to please me. And I'm just grateful that you do the things that you do for me.
Right.
So I can receive it with joy instead of entitlement and ridiculousness, right?
Right.
But I don't have to be disappointed in anybody because I don't have those expectations of people.
Yeah. My
higher self feels that way.
Yeah. Well, I was telling a coworker the same thing.
Does not feel that way.
Yeah. Well, I was telling a coworker the exact same thing. I think it was yesterday we were talking, and I said, she was concerned about like rumors and things like that, and she was thinking that these people, someone was her friend, and then it turned out that they weren't. And I said, well, why that happens is because you are expecting something from them. And it's because you are placing your happiness in their approval of you. I said, people are going to disappoint you. People will disappoint you. Do not give anyone the power to do that. Don't believe that they're your friend. They're going to prove themselves not to be, and it's not to be negative, because I am in no means negative, but exactly the way that you say it. If you don't have those expectations of someone, then they can't disappoint you. And then when they do something, then you absolutely appreciate it and enjoy it and you love it, because it's not something that was expected. But if you expect something and they don't do it, guess what? You're going to be disappointed.
So you were saying about disappointment.
Yeah, disappointment is something that, like you said, it happens when you put your power in someone else's hand. So to prevent disappointment, you just don't do that. I can probably count on one hand the number of people that I would say are on one hand that are truly like friends, right? There are people in my life that I absolutely love, I admire, I adore. However, I do it without any expectation of anything, from them. And I promise nothing to them either, right? So there is no disappointment there. And when the times come when we do connect, it's always great times. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even the people I can count on one hand that I would say that are friends, even those people, I still don't even give that power to where they could disappoint me.
Right.
It may be something that I was blessed with, that that I don't allow that to happen. But I know too many people that are miserable because they feel like
Constantly.
they're always being disappointed by something or someone, and that's just not a life for anyone to live.
It's not.
I talked about in one of the previous podcasts about personal responsibility. When you take personal responsibility for yourself, for your well-being, for your own success, then you cannot be disappointed. You can only be disappointed. I had a little bit of disappointment today because I found out someone that I called yesterday at 8:58 in the morning, which is pretty early to be calling someone. I told you I don't like to make phone calls. I called and talked to this lady at 8:58 in the morning. She says, "Oh, I need to get with my husband and we'll see when we can come down." I didn't hear from her the rest of the day. I was pretty busy. I didn't call to follow up. Um, this morning, she calls back to say that she left something in the car that she traded in. And I said, huh? So I called her back and said, "Miss Mary, you left something in your trade? What do you mean?" She said, "Yeah, I traded in my car yesterday." I said, "Really?" So I was disappointed because I put my, if you want to call it feelings, but I believe that when she said she was going to call me back
And do business with you.
right? I believed it, right? I believed it. So I was disappointed to find out that she came and did business with someone else. And I was disappointed. And the reason I was disappointed is because I allowed somebody else, meaning her, I allowed her to take control of that situation and be the one to call me back rather than me calling back an hour later or 2 hours later. "Hey, have you spoken to Joseph? When are you guys coming in?" Had I done that, then that would not have happened. But because I didn't do that, then they walked in and guess what? Someone else helped them, right? I lost a car deal and I was disappointed because I allowed her, the customer, to be the one in control of the situation. If I had taken control of it, I would not have been disappointed. So I absolutely understand it, and it happens to us.
And sometimes, even though you've done your very best and you've done your best, people have a mind of their own, and that's okay. That's the thing I wanted to say about disappointment. There are going to be times where you disappoint yourself. Like nobody else is even involved. It just didn't work out the way you planned for it to, the way that you didn't perform or execute
Yes.
You gave your best, but it just wasn't what your expectations of yourself were.
Right.
And this is the thing about disappointment, right? They're not deal breakers. Deal breakers are no way, no how, heck to the no.
Right.
I'm done. Disappointments are just a emotional setback. And
Yes.
the good news in that is that you can wake up tomorrow and start a new day.
Exactly.
And you know what? When others disappoint you, you might log it, right? Don't let resentment grow.
Right.
But you extend yourself, the same grace that you extend yourself, you got to extend to other people.
Yeah.
Because I have a saying, we're all doing the best we know how to do any given day of the week on the worst day of our life. Okay? We're doing our best, even if it's broken and bad words, right?
Yeah.
We're doing our best. And you have to assume that other people are doing their best too, even though you just want to, for the love of God, them, right?
Yeah.
They're doing their best. The best their precious poor, bless their hearts, know how to do.
Bless their heart. And
bless them, Jesus.
So it was so funny because I got emotional about it. So I put the other two guys that are on the deal, I put them in a chat or a text, and I texted them. I was like, so I see she bought a car. How did that happen? Because I told her, and I put the exact time. I talked to her at 9:58 that yesterday morning, and she was supposed to call me back. And then I just realized, like, what is that for? Like, it's not going to accomplish anything. It's over.
It's not going to bring your cell back.
Exactly. It's not going to bring it back, so, but it's just funny because we're all human. We're not perfect. And as much as we feel like we understand, hey, what it takes to be successful and the steps to success, at the end of the day, we're still human. Right. And sometimes those things overtake us, but
results may vary. Results do vary.
Results may vary,
results may vary.
Yeah, but that journey is understanding, hey, you're human. All right, you can have your moment. Now reel it back in and focus, and let's get back on track. So what do you enjoy most about where you are now in life? What's the thing that just does it for you?
I love this question. It's the peace that I feel. And of course, this was a journey question too, right? So this wasn't I just blissful all the time. My name is Bliss, but I'm just Bliss. So that's not what this is. But I've evolved into this because it's who I wanted to be. It's not who I was. And I'm not even going to say necessarily it's who I am every day, but it's who I wake up wanting to be.
Right.
And it's the peace that I do feel presently. I have more peace in this segment of my life than I have ever had before.
Yes.
Ever. And I'm a long way away from Mount Calvary, friends. Okay? A long way away from the bottom of the cross. But I am experiencing peace like I have never known it in my life before. And I'm so grateful for that. And that's the enjoyment of that my success has afforded me and my journey has afforded me. I'm able to get quiet and to be alone with my thoughts, and to be by myself. That is really peaceful, right? Yeah. I'm able to see beauty in places that is hard to find. And that's I experience so much gratitude with that because if you can't find beauty in hard places, it's going to be a long road and a hard road for you.
Yes.
I'm able to extend, and this one bites me more than I'd love for it to, but it's true, and I have to practice it. It's hard to practice, right? Patience is a virtue, but I'm able to extend grace to those who need it the most, including myself, okay? Particularly myself, because sometimes you can go around being such a good person, right? And helping so many people and loving so many people and forbearing and long suffering with so many people, but not yourself and your own thoughts and your own shortcomings.
Right.
You got to remember to extend yourself grace every single day. It's pretty cool right now being me, if I say so myself. Watching my clients break records and check big ticket items, dream houses and rental properties and generational wealth off their list. That's hashtag awesome stuff. And me being a tiny little catalyst in their amazing stories, this what changes their life story into amazing trajectory. That is, I don't really know how to put that into words, but it's very, if you've ever been in that position to be a small catalyst of someone at a crossroads from going good to great, that's what I get to do every single day.
Right.
Once I've done the entire job.
Right.
But it's really fun, and I enjoy that. Being responsible for executing such a big task and big decisions in short amounts of time, it's insane, but it's also very gratifying. Yeah. And sharing, doing this, what I'm doing with you right now via this platform is different, right? But that, you know, you got to go with it. You got to ebb and flow and be fluid in life. But sharing my heart, my wisdom, and the blessed ability and abundance to share a tiny little bit of my wallet with those in need, it really floats my boat, and it's a huge blessing, and I'm grateful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who do you admire most?
My mommy.
Yeah.
I have a couple of people on this list, but the number one person is my mom. You know, Sister Mary.
Yeah.
She is a perfect saint. She will be sainted, and she can do no wrong, but she is human. She's very Southern, and she's full of grace.
Yeah.
Bless her precious little heart. And she's perfect. She's as perfect as a person could be. And she's my mom, and I love her. I have a business partner and a dear colleague and a friend in my life. And they are so generous. The most generous person I have ever seen. I don't even understand it, how generous they are. With their wisdom, with their wealth, with the business acumen that they have, they are an extraordinary gift. And I consider myself most fortunate to be part of their life, and them be a part of my life in my inner circle. And they have just taught me so much.
Yeah.
And my life has been forever changed by them. Also in that list are the rest of my close friends. They each have their own paths, and they're fearless, and they press forward. This is the thing, people, that I had to learn in my life. If there's one thing I had to say that I was most successful about, it's my faith, right? It's I believe we're gonna make it. I don't know where we're making it to, but we're gonna make it, right? Because I'm bound for the promised land. I'm bound for I told you, that little church girl, right? And I'm bound for the promised land, and we're gonna make it. And be fearless. You have to be fearless. Life is gonna knock you down. Life is gonna take the wind out of your sails. Like it's just gonna throw you on an island, and you were in the middle of an ocean, and then you got to figure out how to get back.
Yeah.
And keep sailing. Like, you got to be fearless and press forward, whatever happens. Downturns, markets, loss of jobs, sickness, just press forward. Do your very best and press forward. And my friends do that. They have, they each have their own problem. They have their problems. They have their challenges. They have their gifts. They're extraordinarily accomplished. Like, all my friends are like wealthy and, got it going on. Like, all my friends have it going on. Very accomplished.
Well, you're gonna have to recommend and refer some of your friends to grace us on this platform.
Yeah, I will. But they press forward, and they always believe in a tomorrow. And I call it breathtaking sunsets and beautiful unknowns.
Yeah.
And then we travel to those places.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And last but not least, who I admire, I do a lot of work for veterans and other local heroes. And what I've learned to respect so much about those local heroes, we call them, right? Hometown heroes, teachers, fire, police, veterans. They all put their lives on the line every single day, not because they have to, but because this is the job they chose to do. They could all quit their jobs and go fry chicken or whatever and figure something else out. And
Right.
By the way, people, you can go figure something else out too. You don't have, nothing in your life is I gotta. You gotta take a breath, and you gotta die one day. But anything else, you probably have a say-so on how that's going to
You have a choice.
go down. So always keep that in mind and live your life full of choices. Even when you make not so great ones,
Right.
own it, know that you chose it. Okay. So these people choose to do their jobs because it's what they feel that they're meant to do, whether they love it or not, but they choose to do it, and they do it without thanks or praise or acknowledgement on most given days. And I know this because I try to go out of my way to send that kind of love locally in my hometown and stop by fire departments. So I know that they do thankless jobs, and the EMTs, but they're putting their lives on the line for you and me and people with no common sense,
Right.
every day. And I just have so much respect for them and what they do. So the next time you see a hometown hero, you make sure you just stop them and say thank you, because they are epic souls.
That's absolutely. And lastly, I have found personally that along this journey, as we've called it for this episode, along this journey, I really feel as though I am becoming, because it's still a journey. I'm not there yet, but I feel as though I am becoming the best version of myself. I feel as though that there are things that are happening that are giving me so much joy and so much happiness. I feel like there are people who I'm touching, who I'm blessing, who I'm helping. And I feel that is something that just happens along this journey. Once we decide, we're really going to press towards something. How has your journey helped you to become the best version of yourself?
So when we were kind of just having a conversation, I was answering your questions, but you were already doing the interview process, and I was like, oh yeah, he's asking the questions. But one of the first things that I said to you was, when you asked about how I create success, I said to you, I ask a lot of questions, right? And I said that creating key relationships, when you find better people, and better people not mean better than you, but people who have the answers you want, people who have the success you want, people who make the money you want, people who have the joy and peace you desire. Ask them how they got it. Mm-hmm. What do they eat? Where do they go? What are their routines?
Yeah.
What do they spend their money on? What stocks do they buy? What stocks don't they buy, right?
Right.
What do they never spend money on? Like, sometimes we think it's about what people do that makes them a success.
Sometimes it's about what they don't.
Sometimes it's about what people don't do or will never do that actually creates success or helps them to avoid failure, right?
Yes.
And so life doesn't have to be some mystical unknown. We really can, people are just people, and everybody wants something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm repeating myself in this, is creating key relationships. And the key relationship for you, whoever it is just the person who has what you want. Mm-hmm. And or being the person that has what somebody else wants, right? Mm-hmm. Because we all have to realize, and this is so important, I don't care who you are, if you know it, then you better get to knowing how to share what you have with other people in some way, a product, a service, a mentorship relationship, a book, whatever it is. But if God gave you something, you were meant to share it, period. Now, if you want to profit off of it, God bless you, right? Amen. That's right. Abundance now.
If you can profit off of it, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's the ultimate form of creation, right?
It is.
Creativity and creation, right? Profitability and creation, right? But that's what we were meant to do. We were meant to be in relationship with our higher power. We were meant to be in relationship with each other. And so I say this because this is the best version of myself, is giving, right? But giving can't exist without someone receiving it. And what you need to know is that you can't be the next level of you. I can't be the better bliss of me until somebody else gives to me and pours into my life and helps me to connect my dots, right? And on the other end of that spectrum, I got to be able to do the same for somebody else. So each one has to reach one. And that's where asking the better questions. Who do I need to connect with so I can get to where I'm going? So that I can complete my next steps, my next goal. What are my next steps, right? Ask myself these questions. What are my next steps? What are my next goals? Who's done what I'm getting ready to do?
Right.
Hey, let's talk about this. Who's willing to help me? Because just because I'm asking doesn't mean that people are willing to share how they did it.
Right. Wow. That's
Nor should you expect them to, right? Because people are petty. You're not petty because you're listening to this. You're not petty because you're asking yourself the right questions, because you're developing yourself, because you're going through their journey. Just because people are experiencing success because they have a big number, whatever their number is, a bank account, followers, whatever their number, their success is, doesn't mean that's who you want to be. Right? But you can take some tips and tricks, we'll call them tricks, tips, take what you need, leave what you don't from them. But inevitably, you want people in your life where you see them and you will instantly know, I want what they've got.
Right.
Like they've got, and maybe not all of them, but that one thing. And then you hound them, you ask them questions about that one aspect of their life.
Right.
And you make that work for you. So it's your relationships is always your secret sauce.
Yeah.
My dad taught me that as a very, very young girl. You are the sum of your relationships. If you want to be wealthy, you better get you some wealthy friends.
Yeah.
If you want to be smart, you better hang around some smart people.
Yeah.
If you want to be a drug addict, start hanging around people doing drugs.
Yeah.
And it's all true.
As you say that, like when you said that about there may be someone that has that number that, or has achieved that number that you're trying to get to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to want to help you. Like, oh my God, somebody immediately popped to my mind. They have, and it's a situation where I heard this person say that, and this is someone that does well in what they do. And they flat out said that I don't want to help my competition or train my competition or train someone else who's going to come and do as well as I'm doing. And it just blew my mind because I think the exact opposite. I think I want to help and train someone else because I feel like as I'm doing that, then I'm helping and training myself, but I feel that.
Well, that's because you're extraordinary.
Thank you. But I think that there's a reward for that, though. There's a reward when you give and give not expecting anything back. There's a reward when you help others without expecting something back. So it may be a subconsciously below the surface, a selfish reason, but I love to do it. I love to help others. And I wish that one day, well, not I wish, but I know that one day I will be in a place to where I can do that. Kind of like you said, take a little bit of money out of my pocket to be able to help someone. But first, I've got to get to that place, but that's definitely something that I endeavor to do. And I hope to do is, one day I want to be at a place to where I can do that. But until then, this is the platform, one of the platforms I've chosen to be that help. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Make sure to connect with us on all of our platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can also listen to the podcast on anchor.fm. Best of all, make sure to check out the website at achievesuccesspodcast.com.